The AAA gaming industry is, well, not great. For a long while now, every single year, my favorite games have been indie games, at least in the single-player first-person shooter world, aside from the occasional Doom. Unfortunately, indie games don't quite have the budget that AAA games do, so lots of them go under the radar. So today, I'm going to be covering the best indie first-person shooters I have ever played. Hey everyone, Jarek here. I'm a dragon on the internet, and I have this nifty tier list to place all of these games to kind of give you an idea of how I really feel about them. Also, since this video is somewhat similar to another video I made, there's a few games that would have crossed over into this one that I mentioned in that video, and I'll quickly mention them here but not fully cover them just to not have repeats because that wouldn't be interesting. That video was talking about the best hidden gems I've ever played, but most of the games there were AAA games that just came out a long while ago when people have forgotten or just never heard of. But the two indie games were Retchid. If you like Doom 3, you really are going to like this game because it's heavily inspired by Doom 3, and Wrought Flesh. This game what the is weird. I can't compare it to anything. A lot of people asked if this was like Cruelty Squad, but no, they don't play similar at all. This game is not an immersive sim, and no, it's not made by the same devs. It just kind of looks similar in a very weird way. Also, important to clarify, I'm only talking about single-player first-person shooters here. Multiplayer shooters could be their own video. Maybe I'll do that in the future. Betrayer. This game was phenomenal, and from day one, was basically forgotten. It got overlooked rather quickly. The history behind this one is really interesting. This game, while being an indie game, certainly doesn't feel like it because the entire team was composed of industry veterans. And not just any industry veterans. Many of the developers in this team worked on the original Fear at Monolith. I'm not sure what their reasonings were for branching out or why they worked on this game. I'm sure they all had their reasons, but for a while it was actually pulled off of Steam. In fact, it's still not on Steam. You can't technically buy it anywhere. But good news, it's now free on GOG. GOG saving the day once again. I'm not sure why it got taken down. As far as I can tell, there was no legal issues with it. It just seems like the devs behind it didn't really need to keep it up, so they requested it not to be on Steam anymore. Anyway, let me actually tell you what this game is. Atmospheric, that is everything this game is. You are completely alone in the forest, investigating why early American settlements completely disappeared. There's some supernatural stuff in here, and it gets a little fucked up. I'll keep it a secret and not spoil anything, but it's a free game. I really recommend playing it. Oh, also, if you don't like the original black and white and red art style that they were going for here, here's the settings I use to make it, like, colorful. I prefer the color. Betrayer goes way up there in S tier. I really do think this game is super overlooked. Selaco. Okay, you knew this one was going to be in here. Selaco is one of the bigger indie games if you're in the same sort of sphere I am for styles of games that I like. If you don't know about it, well, Selaco is heavily inspired by Fear. That much comes through, but not so much to the point where it's just a Fear clone. In fact, this feels quite original. It's like those early 2000s games, but on an engine with sprites. I originally called this game a spiritual sequel when I first played the demo way back in the day, but I think spiritual sequel to Fear applies more to Trepang 2, and Selaco's kind of its own thing, just heavily inspired by Fear, which is not at all the same thing. Either way, you want a really good atmospheric storytelling single-player first-person shooter with a punchy shotgun? Buy this game. I gave it Game of the Year when it came out. It's just that good. Do I even need to say where Selaco goes? It might be the best game out of all of this crop. Right up in S tier. Echo Point Nova. This has to be one of the most overlooked games I have ever seen. Right away on launch, no one talked about this. No one seemed to know what this game is. The few people that did play it raved about it. It's so good. Now, why did I like Echo Point Nova so much? Well, it's because it's just very unique. There is no other experience you were getting like this game. You have a double jump, you have a grappling hook that you can use on clouds, you have tons of speed, and you need all of this stuff because the entire map itself is just floating islands up in the sky. You see those islands off in the distance? You can go there. That's part of the map. Hell, you can go to space, and I'm not exaggerating. Also, this game has drop-in co-op, and it worked flawlessly. I had no problems. There's plenty of upgrades that you can, well, upgrade, and some of these are real silly, like for example, getting your double jump back when you kill something, but also you have a rocket launcher so you can just become an attack helicopter. And at the same time, you can get your ammo back while you're wall running, so you could just literally never land. Also, the music is great. Like, this game is just a vibe. I would highly recommend playing it. Echo Point Nova is fantastic and super overlooked. I think I would put it upper A tier. For this next game, I'm going to mention just VR games as a whole. People seem to have this perception that Half-Life Alyx is the only reason to buy VR on the first-person shooter side, and that's just not true. I don't even think Alyx is the best VR game. Now, don't get me wrong, Alyx is fantastic. It does have an amazing story and amazing graphics, but the gameplay does leave something to be desired. It's still really good because it has that Valve polish. I cannot imagine the amount of Q testing that went into these set pieces, but there's just a lot of things you can't do that you should be able to do in VR games. There's no two-handed weapons, you only have 3 guns, there's no melee weapons, you're just a floating pair of hands and a headset, you can't even jump, you can't climb anything, it feels really restrictive. But when you go over to indie games, like Vertigo Remastered and Vertigo 2, you suddenly have two-handed weapons and melee weapons, and a crazy, weird world, and an over-the-top story. And then you go over to Boneworks and you can do just literally everything. This feels like a sandbox game, but shoved into a linear single-player story. These maps are obviously not open world maps. This is just a linear shooter with the training wheels taken off. You can do anything. Full melee, full two-handed weapons, climb everything, try to get out of the map if you want to. There are no restrictions on the player. Half-Life Alyx is just a fantastic entry point into VR. An easy way to get your VR legs. When you first get into VR, you may get motion sickness, so I would recommend putting on your headset, playing for, I don't know, 30, 40 minutes, however long it takes you to start feeling that bad feeling. Take your headset off and then do it the next day. After a couple of days of doing this, something in your brain just kind of clicks, and it just doesn't happen anymore. You just have your VR legs. It's literally like learning how to ride a bike where your brain just suddenly understands it. It just makes sense. Anyway, my point here is that I actually think Vertigo 2 and Boneworks are both better than Alyx as VR games. And there's so many other ones that I could talk about here, like Into the Radius being an amazing Stalker-like game, or The Light Brigade being this bizarre alternate universe World War roguelike shooter, or Crossfire Sierra Squad pulling off that co-op Call of Duty feel remarkably well.
Sick me again. Oh, they're too far!
Yeah, there's a good Crossfire game, which is crazy. Anyway, you get my point. VR as a whole is just full of indie first-person shooters that are really good, but you probably never heard of unless you're already in VR and looking for them. And it's really created this misconception that Alyx is the only good game in VR, when there's hundreds of so many good games that you'll never be able to experience anywhere else. And the reason you can't experience it anywhere else is because those games literally don't work out of VR. Not because they're restricted there, but because the gameplay mechanics and everything just don't. It's something that is impossible to explain to someone that hasn't played VR, but VR is a trip. I really love playing VR games. If you have a gaming PC that already plays all the latest games, then you can get a Quest 3S for roughly $300 and you're already set up to play VR. Nothing more is needed. Side note, I had people getting angry at me for saying that the Quest 3S is only $300, acting like that was like presumptuous and just talking down at them. What? I grew up in poverty. I don't have money. What are you talking about? I say only $300 because that's way less than the other VR headsets and a lot less than VR used to be. Anyway, I'm not going to rank VR games just as like a genre. I mean, I guess I could put them in S tier, but I have to rank all the games separately, and I think that's for a different video that I may do in the future. But I have a couple of VR games I want to cover first. Forgive Me Father 2. This game has such a cool art style. I thought that about the first game as well, but nothing about the first game really grabbed me. It was fine, but I didn't quite have the urge to keep playing it till the end. I did because I had to make a video of it, but if I didn't have to make a video of it, I probably wouldn't have. Forgive Me Father 2, on the other hand, I gave Boomer Shooter of the Year. This game is really good. Not only does it have wild animations and guns and enemies, but every single battle you encounter have been clearly playtested well. Enemies spawn in specific locations to make every gunfight as fun as possible. It's just a solid boomer shooter I would highly recommend. Compared to these other games, I'd probably place it upper B tier. Mullet Madjack and Angerfoot. Let me quickly mention Angerfoot because I didn't know if I should put it in here. Like, it's an indie game, but it's also published by Devolver Digital. It had marketing behind it. I don't really think it quite fits what I'm doing in this video, but at the same time, it came out right around when Mullet Madjack did, so I kind of just connect them together in my brain. They both do wildly different things visually, but they're of the same genre. Kick down doors and shoot enemies as fast as possible and get to the next level. Angerfoot is just wild. Design-wise, the whole energy of this game is very stupid. I love it. Whereas Mullet Madjack is heavily inspired by old anime. Now, I largely don't like anime, but if we can get this era of anime back over what we have now, I would be fine with that. But yes, both these games have fantastic art styles and fantastic music and just fantastic gameplay. Highly recommend both of them. They both go up in A tier right next to each other. I'm gonna mention an entire genre of games that I've largely covered already in previous videos, but there are a lot of the indie games I play, and that's Half-Likes. These are games heavily inspired by Half-Life, if the name didn't give that away. And yeah, I talk about these all the time, but I know if I didn't mention it here, then people would ask where they are, and also I just get any opportunity to talk about these games. I love these. These are the games like, say, Industria, which is heavily inspired by Half-Life 2, or Adaka, which is a mixture of Half-Life meets Halo, at least for the single-player campaign. Zone Patrol is heavily inspired by Stalker, and that's kind of the direction this dev would go for their future game. Either way, you get both Half-Life, Halo, and Stalker in the same game, so highly recommend. Kvark is a different one because most Half-Likes are inspired by Half-Life 2, but Kvark is inspired by Half-Life 1. And personally, I like Half-Life 1 more than Half-Life 2. Now, that doesn't mean I hate Half-Life 2. Anytime I say that, people automatically assume I don't like Half-Life 2, which is not true. I love them both to death, but I like Half-Life 1 a little more. There's a lot more of these, you get my point. I made a whole video talking about Half-Likes you should play in the past, and you can just search Half-Likes on my channel and a whole bunch of stuff is gonna come up. Again, I'm not gonna rank an entire genre of games, but I like all of these games so much because Half-Life style games is what I do. They'd all basically be an S tier. Project Silverfish. This was the game I was referring to when I mentioned Adaka's secondary mode, which basically turned into an entirely different game. Yes, this was made by the same developer that made Adaka, but instead of it being a Half-Like, it's just a Stalker style game. I've been calling this game Scaly Stalker because all the main characters are just lizards. There's a character creation mode, which too long didn't read. It wildly affects how the game plays out. This game has a massive world with a lot of atmosphere. You can eat the frogs in this game. Why did that sound like a hunter? Oh, it's you. I recently just made a review of it. I would recommend you go watch that if you want to know more. It's just too much to talk about here. I would highly recommend this game. Easy S tier. Sprawl is what happens when you mix Titanfall 2's movement with Doom Eternal's resource management. This is another one of these games that I gave Boomer Shooter of the Year when it came out. This game feels so satisfying. It is incredibly fast. Slide canceling, wall running, using your shotgun as a rocket jump. Yeah, just satisfying movement all the way around. But it does have that element of Doom Eternal where you gotta be playing the game right and using the game's mechanics, or you're gonna get punished really hard and not have a good time. So if you were one of the ones that didn't like Doom Eternal because you just refused to do the things Doom Eternal wanted you to do, then you're probably not gonna like this game. As for me, I'd probably place this thing up in A tier. Cultic. This is an interesting boomer shooter. Instead of just being fast-paced chuck enemies at you with no more thought in your mind, this game tries to be a little slower and a lot more atmospheric. There is definitely a heavy blood inspiration here, and man, these guns just feel so punchy. As the name implies, you are investigating a cult in the area. At any time cults get involved in any video game, it gets as messed up as you can imagine. Maybe not Silent Hill cult bad, but still pretty damn bad. Cultic's another game I'd place right up there in A tier. Nightmare Reaper, gosh man, I love this game so much. Spoiler right away, this is an S tier for me. I gave this thing Game of the Year. I love this game so much. This game is a pseudo roguelike. I know people get scared when I say roguelike, but it's not that way. Like, quite literally, people will hear the words roguelike and just say, ew, gross, no, not playing that. Don't do that with this game because it doesn't function like a roguelike and you'll miss out a lot. This game throws you into an atmospheric story right away. You wake up all alone in an insane asylum. You don't know your past, you don't know why you're here. When you go to sleep, this launches you into a level. This level has random drops and random loot and whatnot that you can pick up and use. At the end of every level, you get to keep only a couple of things from that level. If you die, you restart that level, but you get to keep what you had when you came into that level from the previous one. So you can see how it sort of functions like a roguelike, but not really. This is really a single player shooter campaign with some roguelike elements. Like I said, I love this game. Nightmare Reaper is an easy S tier for me. So there you go. There's some indie games that I would highly recommend you play. These things are much cheaper than AAA games and in a lot of ways are significantly better and more polished. Big thanks goes to my YouTube members who get to see all of my stuff early, at least 1 week early, sometimes a lot earlier than that. I keep it pretty cheap. I would like to give back to these guys. They pay some of my bills, like genuinely. It means a lot. I don't have a lot of money, so it really helps. If you want to help me in other ways, I got whole playlists over there of content similar to this, or the recommended video down there, or you can subscribe by clicking this here. Thank you guys for watching. I'll see you next time.